Yo, what's up YouTube? Dirty Dan Gaming coming back with another Rise of Kingdoms video, and today we are going to be doing our Tides of War review. This is actually going to be take 2. I did one take already. This was right before Kingsland, but kind of some things have changed, and I kind of want to, I guess, break this down in a little bit more clear and concise way. So hit that like button, consider subscribing. It definitely is appreciated for the work that I'm putting in for this video. We're going to try and make this as concise and short as possible. Again, there's going to be a lot of information to dig through, so just bear with me. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So, what is Tides of War? Tides of War is going to be pretty much a series of buffs that you are going to obtain throughout the KvK, both universally, for your alliance, as well as personal. What do I mean by this? So we are currently in a tide called the Tide of Steel. The universal buff that everyone is going to obtain in this KvK is when fighting troops from other camps during this tide, for every 2 million kill points you earn, your troops gain a 0.1% attack bonus. Per each of these Tides of Steel that are going to pop up, and this is, I believe, the third Tide of Steel. I am going to list these in chronological order so you'll see, but you're going to be able to max out at a certain percentage, and for the season you can max out at 15%. Now, what do I mean by alliance buffs? Now, if you go into these are going to be alliance directives. So these are going to be buffs that your leadership are going to be able to use for each of these tides, and I will detail which directives you are going to have for each of these tides, and you will be able to find a directive overview if you click on that little tab. And if you click on details, you can see exactly what all of these are going to do. Now, if we back out, we can go into personal directives. Now, these are going to be a little bit different. So you need to, number one, just keep in mind that these personal directives are going to vary per KvK. For example, my buddy HeyJ in Kingdom 2377 is right in line with the KvK that I'm in. We're on the same exact timeline. Their Kingsland opened literally 3 days ago on Saturday, same as ours. They have different personal directives than us. Now, some of them are probably going to be the same, but again, you are going to see a little bit of a variation between these personal directives. Now, please be aware, on some of these personal directives, you are going to get limits to the amount of buffs that you can get. For example, here I have makeshift splints. It reduces the resource cost of healing units by 6%. However, as I clicked on this, there is a limit that would pop up, and it told me pretty much there's a 700 million resource limit that you are going to be able to save from using this directive. Now, even though 30 hours our Kingsland, even though we had a 30-hour Kingsland, I still only saved 174 million resources, which is great, by the way. Like, that's good. But I guess maybe for the more intense whales and krakens, they would probably be able to take advantage of this, but maybe there's a different personal directive that they would want to take advantage of altogether. So just keep that in mind. These are going to vary per each KvK. So if your friend is in a KvK running right alongside you, they're not necessarily going to have the same buffs that you're going to have access to, and some of these are going to have limits as well. Now, if we want to just go back and just kind of rewind everything and just say, okay, well, Dan, what is the chronological order of this Tide of Steel? This is why I'm here. I want to know what tides I'm going to have for the specific fighting, what directives I'm going to have access to use. Don't worry. Let's go through them right now. So on January 10th, we dropped into Lost Kingdom. This is going to be the very start of your KvK. Once you land, you have the first tide, which is going to be the Tide of Peace. Now, I'm going to give you a quick glimpse right now. You'll see it pop up. This is going to be a quick little screenshot that I sent in my Discord. You can join the Discord down below. Link is below if you want to stay up to date on any content that I put out. Anytime I go live, some cool peeps in there. We chill, we chat. Join if you want. But I pretty much put the chronological order in there. So here you can save this little screenshot if you please. And we're going to continue on through these tides right now. So if we go to our overview, Tide of Peace is going to be the very first one, and I'm going to leave this. I'll leave this chronological order up here for you guys so you can kind of get an idea as we go through. Tide of Peace is going to give you healing potions for defeating barbarians. Now, don't go crazy. You're only going to be able to get 60,000 troops that you can heal. You are going to get this tide one more time before Kingsland, which will give you a total of 120,000 T5 units that you're going to be able to heal. Very underwhelming in my opinion. It's a good gesture, but don't get fooled, because there is a personal directive here that is probably going to be the same, which is going to reduce the amount of crystals that you need to upgrade both your crystal workshop and your crystal research center. I believe it's by 25%. Total crystals saved, I believe, is going to be around 390,000 crystals. So I'm going to probably get a little bit more value out of that, as opposed to the healing potions, which is going to both reduce the resource cost and the speed ups. But again, it's only 60,000. There is going to be another personal directive in this tide, which is going to give you a little bit more of those troops that you're going to be able to heal through healing potions, but it's only going to give you an extra 5,000 more T5 units. So if you do see the personal directive that reduces the crystal cost for your research center and the workshop, I would highly suggest going for those instead. So the alliance directives that you are going to have access to for this Tide of Peace are going to be double time and lightning strike. So what double time is going to do, and I'm going to list these right down below for you. I'm going to kind of just shoot these off the top of my head, so bear with me. Double time is going to give you a quicker march speed when you're going to barbarian fortresses, and then I believe it also gives you like a reduction in taking like a stronghold or something. You can use that on a pass, so don't get all worked up and be like, oh, we can save this for level 4 passes. The timeline doesn't work in that favor, so you will not have access to that. The most important thing on this tide is going to be the alliance directive, which is going to be lightning strike. This is pretty much where you're going to set up as an alliance event. You are going to have to complete 25 barbarian fort rallies within, I believe it's the time span of 3 hours, and in doing so you get a 5% permanent march speed buff. Now this is going to be able to stack. You are going to get this tide once again right before Kingsland, so you're going to get a total of 10% additional march speed that you can get. Few things on this alliance directive. Number one, if you do not complete the event within your alliance, you can go to another alliance within your camp if they are doing this at a different time. Now, if you don't complete this 5% total, you're going to miss out on that gap in buff. So what do I mean by that? If you only complete, say, 20 forts and you have 4% march speed buff, and you come across this Tide of Peace in the next time it comes up right before Kingsland, you can take part in the event again, but you can't make up that extra 1%. You've lost out on that 1% of march speed, so now the total that you can obtain is only 9%. So you should complete these while this tide is active in these first 4 days. Moving on to the next tide that you will run into during your Tides of War. KvK is going to be the Tide of Spring. When gathering food, wood, stone, or gold, you will earn an extra 5% individual resources and 50% alliance supplies. Alliance supplies can be redeemed using merits earned from killing / severely wounding enemy units in the alliance merit shop. So let's just check out the alliance merit shop real quick. So if you go into your alliance tab, you go into shop, this will be the first thing that pops up. As you can see, we've pretty much drained all of the accumulation that we have. I've already redeemed the 10 here, the 10 million that I can obtain for wood. And you can see all of the merits that I have accumulated over the course of the KvK. It's a good thought, but I just think that they should give us more resources, because I mean, look at all the merits that I have left over to use. So give us a little bit more resources in the alliance merit shop in general, and maybe increase the limit a little bit. One thing I just want to backtrack on real quick, guys, for Tide of Peace, just keep in mind that if you are trying to micro optimize lightning strike, you can do a few things by kind of lining it up with your crystal quests, lining it up to push for your Lucerne scrolls, lining it up to with all of your bastions. So try to micro optimize that. One thing that Lilith I would like to see changed here is just swap Tide of Peace and Tide of Spring, because as soon as you land into KvK, you are already on that same week that you just did all of your Marauders. So you cannot get extra AP pots during this Tide of Peace, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So I would like to just see maybe that change if possible. So moving back to the Tide of Spring, you're going to get these additional resources. The alliance directives that you're going to have access to is well provisioned, which is going to give you more resources during this tide. One of them, for example, is giving you an extra 5% on top of this 5%. So it'll give you an extra 10% to your personal resources. Larder Looter, which is going to give you more resources for killing barbarians in Lost Kingdom. So again, kind of setting up a little bit of an alliance event would be beneficial there. Setting up your Bastion quests to line up for that, pushing that for your Lucerne scrolls, etc. And then last one is going to be Honorable, which is going to give you more honor points for altars and ruins. Pretty sure you're only going to get this. I think we're going to get this again later in the KvK. We haven't had access to it while we have altars going on, but by the time you get to that point, Kingsland's pretty much over. It's all wrapped up. So I don't think that that extra honor point thing is really that necessary, because everyone can just use it at the same time unless you forget. But then you can do kind of like this alteration of using honorable if you're in one alliance, and then go to another alliance that still has it available, because you only get it once. You can only use honorable once for that tide. If we move on to the next tide that you're going to come across in the chronological order of this, it would be your Tide of Unity. This is going to be the first major, like, whoa, game mechanic wise that you are going to see within this KvK. During, so this is going to be during your Zone 5 fights, by the way. During stronghold battles in Lost Kingdom, you can dispatch standby troops to rallied armies and garrisons. When a combat troop in a rallied army or garrison is defeated, it will be automatically replaced by a standby troop. This is where it gets pretty nutty, guys. Like, to be honest, like, standby troops is absolutely insane. You really got to be diligent when you are in this tide. You're gonna have to be scouting a lot more. You can't just go mindlessly swarming rallies and swarming garrisons, because there's going to be potentially tons more troops that are going to be within these garrisons and rallies. Now, when you scout, you will be able to see a separation between what is in the garrison and how many troops are going to be available on standby. So you have to do your due diligence in your scouting. Now, a few things with this. Standby troops can only be T5 troops. So this kind of helps alleviate a little bit of the farm filling potential. But if you just kind of flip the script and farm fill the flag primarily, and then use your standby troop, put your standby troops as just T5s, then you'll be fine. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more unique strategies that come out with this, like potentially loading up the flag in the standby phase with a lot of high capacity troops in T5, so that way your standby troops aren't leaking in as you're pumping farms into it. Or maybe you're doing vice versa and you're allowing your standby troops to kind of go in a little bit more freely. So there's going to be some pretty nice mechanics that go there. For rally troops that are on standby, they will be still within the rally. So you do not have to worry about your standby troops chilling out in the open field or something like that. You don't have to worry about them once they are on standby. I do believe that as a rally is preparing, it will not launch until even all of the standby troops are within the rally. So all the standby troops need to be within. The alliance directives that you are going to have available in this tide are going to be Master Mason, which you can only use once, Flaming Out, and Standing Tall. I believe you can use those 2 to 4 times. Don't quote me on that, but we'll pull it up here on the screen as well. Master Mason is going to pretty much allow you to build a fort in 1 hour. It's really OP, adds a insanely clever twist into the mechanics of Rise of Kingdoms, where we're usually used to building it in 3 hours, pre-season of conquest, and then 2 hours as soon as you get to season of conquest, as those alliance fortresses have a little bit more capacity in them. this also changes the strategy a little bit if you want to potentially save your skillful craftsman, because the zones in Tides of War are much larger. So just to give you a little bit of a glimpse here, this is the zone 5 that you are going to be taking part in for your Tides of War KvKs. They are much larger. You're going to take about, I think from the closest point, this is about 18 flags to your midway point. And then from the farthest pass, this is probably going to be about 22-ish flags around there. I believe when we use Skillful Craftsman, we just barely got like a flag or two away from connecting to our fort, which was at the midway point. So although risky, you could potentially make the call, drop your fort, and then use Skillful Craftsman. Now, with the other alliance directives, Flaming Out and Standing Tall, Flaming Out is going to give you I believe it's 200% extra burn on enemy flags. That is going to be all enemy flags. So if you have 10 flags burning, all of them are going to burn at an extra 200%, I believe it is. And then it is also going to delay the extinguish time by 20 minutes for the enemy as well. So if you're really wrecking them and you want to take a nice chunk of their territory out, you can use Flaming Out, and that is going to essentially kind of, really accelerate the pace of what Zone 5 is going to be. Now, on the other hand, Standing Tall is going to recover the durability by 100% for all of your flags. So if you have 5 flags that are repairing with that little yellow bar, you are going to get a 100% building durability recovery on those flags. And you're going to see animations for all of these. It's very easy and clear to see, what these animations look like. Flaming Out, which you're just going to see much larger flames. And I believe it's also going to tell you on the health status icon when you click on the flag. And then same thing for Standing Tall, you're going to see a nice little recovery animation. So that's pretty much Tide of Unity. This is going to be, again, probably one of the more interesting aspects of Tides of War. Very interesting, very clever game mechanics. Be careful when you're swarming, guys, because it can hurt quite a lot. Trust me, I know from personal experience. Next is going to be Tides of Steel. This is going to pretty much be in effect throughout the rest of your Zone 5. Kind of weird because your Zone 5 fights usually aren't going to last 4 hours, especially with the Master Mason, Flaming Out. Unless you're in a really big Imperium. KvK, most of our Zone 5 fights don't last 4 days. Hell, we don't even have Kingslands that last 4 days. So Lilith, I think you need to adjust this a little bit, but as I stated before, this is the current tide that we are in, and you are going to get those attack bonuses from severely wounding troops or killing troops on the field. This is pretty much going to lead to some pass humping. If you pretty much, when your Zone 5s are going to be wrapped up, you're going to be sitting at passes. You could probably organize some duels on this if you want to, up your rally and garrison leaders attack and set up some friendly duels if you have the camp adjacent to you. But if not, then you're kind of stuck because you're not going to be able to duel for these because you can't gain kill points from within your camp. For these alliance directives, as you can see, if we go over here, you are going to have the Back at It and Back from the Brink. Back at It is pretty much going to just, as soon as your troop is defeated, it's automatically back to your city. Really nice tactic here. We activated this in Kingsland at one point, and it's just, if you're in an alliance that's off on territory and you have to do a really nice far march up, this is really nice if you just want to quickly sat face your troops and then get back into the fight as quickly as possible. And then you have Back from the Brink, which is going to give you 25% of the dead units would be converted into Sev wounds, and then 25% of Sev wounds would be converted into slightly wounded units. And you can see these in reports. Yeah, my reports aren't showing it, but you can see the conversions and what the troops you saved in those reports are. So after Tide of Steel, you are going to go back to the Tide of Spring for a little bit more gathering boosts. Now, I forgot to mention the first time I touched on this. One really nice aspect of Tides of War KvK is on these like kind of like farming tides, as I call them, you are going to have the ability to obtain and save more crystals. So for Tide of Spring specifically, there's a personal directive that gives you more crystals upon completing some resource gathering. I ran so many tests during this Tide of Spring. There's really no rhyme or reason to how you obtain more crystals. I tried using, the one thing that we do know is that the troop load seems to have a little bit of an effect. And then also I believe gathering on territory. But even as I ran one test with a Julius Caesar and an El Cid, who are both the same level, they have no gathering speed whatsoever. I sent them both onto territory with the same amount of troops, and one of them ended up giving me more crystals than the other. So I really could not figure out how you were accumulating more of these crystals. If you guys know down below, please leave a comment so the rest of the community can know how to get more crystals. But that's a really nice aspect of these Tides of War KvK, where we are getting a little bit more crystals, which I guess makes up for the lack of crystals that we get, because KvK, you only get up to normal so far. So go figure. Next tide is going to be your Tide of Steel. So you're going to go back into Tide of Steel. This is going to be for your altar fights. So you are going to have Back at It and Back from the Brink. Back at It is going to be probably the most crucial for your altar fights, as once that march is dead, it's going to go right back to your city, which means if you have your second march waiting, it's going to automatically be able to go back in, because actually you can do that when you sad face anyway. But yes, if you're trying to kind of conserve a little bit and not sad face, this is going to be a pretty nice tide. And then you're also going to have Back from the Brink as well. So for each of these tides, all of the alliance directives that I'm listing out here, those alliance directives are going to stay the same for each time one of these tides comes up. So Tide of Steel is going to be for your altar fights. And then you are going to go back into Tide of Peace right before Kingsland opens. So before Kingsland opening, you're going to be able to do Lightning Strike one more time, as I've stated previously in the video. And again, this is going to be able to give you your 5% march speed buff for a total of 10%. Yes. And then you start to get into the really nitty-gritty things. Now, I thought this Tide of Change was going to be a little kind of boring. It's going to give you an artifact very similar to Warriors Unbound. You're going to be able to take the artifact and put, take Cav artifact, for instance, and put it on a Zhuge Liang, and then match like your Ho Chu Bing with Zhuge Liang. That is probably the least interesting part of this tide, to be honest with you. This tide was insanely fun. You have this tide for your past 7 fights, okay? So I misspoke a little bit by saying that you have the Tide of Peace right before Kingsland, which technically you do, but Tide of Change is going to be for your past 7 fights and your Kingsland openings. Depending on when you manipulate the timing of Kingsland opening, we had this Tide of Change for the first 9 hours in Kingsland. So on top of the artifacts that you're going to get, you are going to have the Alliance Directives, Banner of Peace, Foundation Cracker, and Tower Defense. Banner of Peace is going to be really dope. It prevents your flag from being attacked for 3 hours. Foundation Cracker is going to give your rally a potential to reduce the durability while the rally is ongoing. So if you are on your past 7 fights and you win the pass, and you're now then going for the rallies on the forts, if your enemy is deciding to constantly fill these forts and you use Foundation Cracker, you're going to see little tickers of minus 15 durability coming off. I believe it's 15. You have a 15% chance, I believe, for it to proc. We'll list it up here. But that kind of makes your enemy think twice a little bit of reinforcing these forts, because that durability can go all the way down to 1. And if you win the rally, and as soon as that fort catches a burn, you'll be at 1 durability, and boom, fort is going to be gone. The other really interesting directive here is going to be the tower defense, which is going to turn a flag permanently into an alliance arrow tower, which has a pretty large radius. The arrow towers were sick. It adds such a deep layer of strategy into level 7 passes as well as Kingsland, because this radius is so large. And what it's going to do is it's going to attack cities to force them to port off of territory. So it really disrupts the ability for an enemy to set up a proper hive on one of their flags, as even if a shitty city is shielded, it is going to still attack that city, reduce the durability of the wall, and force it to port away. And this happens relatively quickly too. I think it takes maybe like less than 5 minutes, probably even a little bit less than that, for the Alliance Arrow Tower to do its job and get that city off of territory. These directives, considering if you're in a larger scale KvK with more kingdoms, I guess, and per your alliances, you're going to have these available as well. So even if you're an Imperium Kingdom, you're going to want to utilize more of your alliances as well. The fact that you can have 4 arrow towers and 4 banners of pieces going on within one camp at a time is pretty nuts. It stalled us up quite a decent amount of the time in this last Kingsland fight, and then we were also able to use it to our advantage too. So the artifacts are cool. You are going to see the infamous Gorgo Attila garrison, which lives up to the hype, trust me. But these alliance directives are probably the most cool thing about the Tide of Change. Now, after you're done with that first day or so of Kingsland, probably that first reset is going to lead you right back into the Tide of Steel, which gives you, again, back at it and back from the brink, which back from the brink is going to really, you're going to save troops. You're going to save on 7 wounds and you're going to save on dead. So I believe you can use that twice. Can we use it twice? Once. You can only use it once within the 4 days. So make sure you're not burning that. And again, each alliance is going to have the ability to use this. So if one alliance pops it, you send a majority of the fighters into that alliance. You know, you're gonna really be able to get flexible with this thing. And then lastly, you're gonna go, if you're still in Kingsland for, you know, those first 4 days and you're still fighting, you are going to have Tide of Change again, which, man, I couldn't even imagine having another round of Tide of Change with a full 4 uses of your tower defense and your banner of peace. Foundation cracker a little bit. I feel like especially in Kingsland, you're going to be getting swarmed down a decent chunk, and you're not going to really be having those prolonged holds. And you know, as playing defense, if you want to choose to just let that flag go and disappear, then so be it. Let it go, and that way you're kind of saving on the durability a little bit. Now, a few things for a few minor game mechanics. I don't say minor, they're kind of major. Few other game mechanics within this Tides of War KvK, or I guess the main one. So one more major game mechanic that we picked up on in this Tides of War is garrison captains do not die. Yes, you heard that right. You can put 1 troop as a garrison captain and that thing is not going anywhere. You're going to stay in that garrison until the rally is over. Now, once the rally or swarm or whatever is concludes, if your garrison troop is at 0, that troop will automatically leave the flag. We use this to our advantage. Even though these garrison captains do not die while they're within battle, as soon as that rally or anything concludes, that troop or that march is automatically going to leave the flag, so that way you can refresh. And then lastly, kind of just wrapping up, so after you get through this last Tide of Unity, the only alliance directive that you're probably going to be able to take advantage of here is going to be honorable for your altars, and that's going to be probably for anyone who's pushing honor. Actually, for your Tide of Peace, you are going to have double time with it if that lines up on a pass opening, say if it's for your level 9 passes or any of the passes that are going to fully unseal. You probably could take advantage of that, but also those are going to be controlled. So forget what I just said. And then you're just going to close out the KvK with farming tides. And with that, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you've not done so. If I missed anything on this Tides of War kind of review, leave a comment down below. Any notes, anything else that can help the community. There's a bunch of players that are going to be going into, a bunch of friends of mine that are going into Tides of War who actually have fighting coming up very soon. So we'll probably end up doing a little bit of stream on that to check those out. And with that, yeah, that's all I got. Hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. Love y'all. Thank you all so much for the support. I'm out. Have a good one. Later. Peace.